to your thing. There you go. All right. Well, I'll be honest with everyone here, listener included. I have no idea where I'm going to start this today. I just figured I would start this and see where it goes from there. And so I'm going to just stop talking and see who jumps in and starts next.
That is as good a spot as any because I just got done eating some pizza flavored chips with peanut butter on them. I'm still kind of stuck in my teeth, and it wasn't as bad as I thought. Like I was expecting it to be. Actually, now that I think of initially, I was like, these two things just don't go together. They just don't. But it wasn't something I dug into. It was just kind of like assumed. And then I tried it and I was like, wait a second. All right, the pizza isn't too pizza. It's mostly salty. And adding a salty carb type thing to peanut butter is pretty normal. Peanut butter and crackers. And so yeah, it was actually a pretty solid snack. Pretty much all I have in my fridge right now is eggs and cheese, and I didn't have time to do that. And all I had besides that were pizza chips and peanut butter. So that was the combo I went with, and I was feeling very hungry, and I was like, all right, I'm good now. This will get me through the next couple hours, and maybe I'll grab a couple more after this call.
Man, it's so funny that you use the word combo because the first thing I thought of was when I was, I think, I don't know, 20, 21. No, I think I might have been a bit younger. Let's say around 18. I was living out in Ontario and I was in the train station and I went to the little kiosk to get some snacks and I discovered combos. I don't know if anybody remembers combos, right? But they had peanut butter stuffed ones, then they had pizza flavored stuffed ones. And so I used to just combo those. I used to just add those together. And so that was the very first thing I thought of when you were talking about this flavor sensation that you were going through was combos. And then straight up you use the word combo right after. And just I thought the timing was fantastic.
It's starting to trip me out a little bit more. I was editing the Stephanie Corden episode. It's going to be last night, and it's going to be season 6, episode 19. And we were talking and like going back and forth about things that we weren't going to bring up on the episode with her. And then you said, all right, we gotta tone this down because she'll be on here soon. Boom. As soon as you stopped talking, she got on. It's like, no, no shit. And I wonder, is it just lack of doubt? Is it just not hesitating? Is it just not second guessing that gut instinct, that thing that's right there? Because I was thinking before you started talking, like, should I start this real quick? Should I jump in real quick and talk about my fucking pizza peanut butter chips? And then you started and you stopped in a couple seconds, and I was like, oh, all right, that worked.
Suddenly the hole was there and it seemed appropriate for you to slide in and fill it. You know, it's exactly what Bruce Lee was talking about in Enter the Dragon when he was discussing with his master or the character that was his master about martial arts, about the actual art of self-defense. And towards the end, he's like, I don't hit. My fist hits for me. And it's just because all of a sudden it's just there's that hole and it just makes sense that that's where that fist should go. Right. And that's something that you definitely start to experience more and more as you start to enter into stuff like that for sure, because you realize it's less about you going conceptually, I'm going to do this, and you just being part of it as a whole. That said, I should probably mention this is a roundtable episode, and we are joined because, of course, it's a podcast, so they can't see the screen after the fact, can they? We are joined by Jay, Levi, and Jazz. And I'm very excited for today's episode because I didn't neglected to mention Amanda, who is a co-host, of course, but of course, as a co-host, gets mentioned last because we don't want her to be on a pedestal by any means. None of us are on a pedestal. I'm also here, and then of course Andrew as well, and and that's all I got. It's just gonna peter out like that.
Well, I'm
Oh
excited to be here.
shit, we've
Oh,
got a last minute entry. Marie, Marie has just come into the room. Perfect timing. Isn't that funny? We just finished mentioning everybody, and bam, Marie got here right on time. So, Marie, thank you so much for joining us right now. And we have a hand up, so I'm going to pass it to Levi. This is apparently the hole that he is going to fill.
Yeah, exactly. It was just so funny because when you kind of just threw it out there at the beginning, like my immediate reaction was like panic. I'm like, oh my God, what am I gonna say? I didn't expect this. And then Andrew started talking, and then I was like, oh, all right, okay, very good. So it's so funny, this thing, like, because it's like there's this idea that it has to be something perfect, and then Andrew starts to talk about what he ate like a little bit ago, and like it's okay, it's fine, everything is fine. That's the funny thing. So just the pressure we put on ourselves to say the right things is just getting in the way of just hitting, when the hole is there. Because we think about it instead of doing it. I think that's where it comes in. So just jumping in with that.
Yeah. And there isn't so much that's like, I've started to get a sense that there isn't so much on the line anymore. Like, without something on the line, without so much of an idea of like there being a right thing to say or like a right direction or a right way to go, it's like there's so many more options. Like, there's so much more on the table, and you can't get to it. Like, you can't think your way to it. You can only kind of be in it and trust it and have faith that it's going to be there, and then it's a practice being there, because then you're here, and then you start getting, like, right now I'm definitely getting like a buildup of like, oh, I don't know what else to keep saying. I don't know how to keep this on what, on a
I'll join in.
topic.
There is no topic, right? But like on this same kind of topic, speaking of, I've been kind of experiencing that more in my life now, like because like what am I going to get all worked up about, like in a conversation or in my head or whatever the case is? It's like I'm getting worked out about what, like myself, like because I am everything. I'm not just like me, little old me here in this thing. So whenever I'm having like thoughts and everything and whatever I might feel about a certain situation, whether I'm on a podcast episode or whatever, like thoughts don't have to come into play so much. Like you said, Andrew, there's nothing to lose. Cause like where is it to lose from? Where who gains from me like sort of in my head belittling myself somehow, like it just hasn't been making sense in that respect, because there's been like I've been going through a process now of change where I've got a new job, and so in that I'm learning new things. So being in that constant state of learning all the time has been really nice, because this is like a point in my life where normally I'd be like, oh, I'm not good enough, or like what do they think? Like there's all kinds of avenues that I can go that could be like thought directed and everything to like beat myself up during this process. And I kind of went there a little bit and tasted it, but I'm like, hey, that's not, these are just like thoughts, and feelings for that matter. Like any meaning that I'm putting to these things is strictly not me, because that's like not me, you know what I mean? I'm the observer of things. So it's been like an experience kind of in and out of the observer of what's happening here in Jay's body and what he's experiencing, and like as from the greater macro kind of point of view too. I've been kind of feeling that.
I get that for sure. It's funny. I was going through it last night. So as everybody knows, I am a father to a teenager, and my teenager is going through her own shit. She's got her life, she's got friends, she's got responsibilities and things that she's dealing with. And as a result, I just don't spend as much time with her. And when I do, she's often, dealing with shit in her life. And so you look at it and you're like, oh, that's kind of too bad. I miss her, blah, 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 blah. And you go through this whole emotional thing, and then you're like, hold up. Like, I just got lost in a whole bunch of thoughts about me having what I want, respect, irregardless of what it does to my daughter, right? Or anything else. So I just wish she was here with me. right? I just wish it was this way. I just got caught up in the thought and the emotions that went with it. And I went, huh. And then it passed. And then it passed because I just went, oh, look at that. I see where that's coming from without judging it. I was just like, I see where that's coming from. Yep, I could see why I'd feel that way. Right? I could see why I'd feel that way if that made sense. If that was true, I could see why I'd feel that way. And what's funny is I, let it go. And then this afternoon, I had the best conversation with my daughter, right? Where all of a sudden, all of that perceived distance wasn't even there, right? Because it was just something I was going through momentarily. And had I held on to it, that moment today couldn't have happened because I would have been like, come to me, prove how much close we are. I would have had that very needy energy instead of just being there when it was the right moment, when the hole was there, right? And she felt that it was appropriate for her to fill it rather than me trying to get in there and dictate how that should happen, when that should happen, based on a momentary feeling that I'm afraid of. Right. And that's really all it is. It's like, oh, I feel diminished. Nah. And you're like, hold up, give it a second. And they're like, oh, yeah, right. I'm full of shit. Yeah, and then it's gone. Right. And that's pretty much it. It's like, oh, I feel less. Wait up. I just got caught up in an idea. Never mind. And then you feel fine. And it's just allowing yourself to go through that process of getting caught in it and going, right, but that's not actually what I think it is. And then it's gone. But you can't do that if you're not even allowing yourself to get caught in it. This is why everybody's like, I want to escape the ego. It's like, why? Outside of the fact that you never let it inform you, right? Like, look at the suffering. It's telling you something, right? It's telling you something. And it's like, no, I want to get to a point where the suffering never happens. It's like, then you're ignoring half of you, like a good portion of you. And that's just it. It's just let it pass. And all of a sudden you come out the other side and you're like, oh, wow. And what I love about that is that often, and this is where the whole synchronicity thing comes in, often reality does exactly what it did today. It's like, oh, yeah, I got caught up all in this and let it go. And then boom, the very thing I was like, I need that to happen, happened as soon as I didn't need it to happen. As soon as I was just like, yeah, I'm good. Everything's just fine. Boom. There's the thing that at one point I would not have been able to appreciate because of the need. It's fucked. I just love it though. When you watch the process as it happens, you're just like, I really just should just sit back and let this happen. This is why it's so important to spend time by yourself to go through the emotional shit. Right? It really does help with no one to distract you. Just sit in a room by yourself and really see what's still irking you. Right? And just let it come up.
And when you aren't catering to needs anymore, there's almost, as uncomfortable as it seems like in the moment, there's more attention that's paid to when there are interactions and conversations. There's more appreciation for, discussions and whatnot. And it's funny, this is actually an example. I remember thinking of this when we were talking to Rama the other day of like things happening when you stop needing them to. This is like a very simplistic example, but my power is out last week and I was trying to like turn on, or what was it? I was trying to heat something up in the pan and I was like, ah, shit, can't do that. And I was like, oh, wait a second. I can, and bitched about that for a second. And then I was like, wait a second, I can just put it in the microwave. And like, as soon as I went to press the button of the microwave, all the power came back on. Stove is working fine. Like right in that point. And I was like, yeah. All right, cool. Guess we're using the stove. Jazz.
That's pretty cool how that happens. Just perfectly timed. Something I wanted to bring up was something I've been going through the past week. It's been interesting. Last night was very interesting as well. I want to question why I want to bring this up, and I don't know why I want to bring this up, but I'll just go through with it regardless and let it play out. because I have been thinking about this thing leading up to this call. And so whenever I'm thinking about something that much, I'm like, why am I thinking about it this much? But last night, I was just feeling a huge wave of guilt. Just like processing how much that need has affected my relationships with myself, with everyone around me, just recognizing how much pain has been inflicted because of how much need there has been, how much of a need to manipulate and to fill a lack that wasn't there. And I was like, yeah, I was crying a lot. But I just let it play out. And I was just okay with it. I was okay with allowing myself to feel all that pain because I was clearly not feeling that pain up until then. And then it went away. And I realized just how much empathy that informs. Like, it's all such a necessary part. Like, suffering is such a necessary part. Acting out of need is such a necessary part. And I still feel that weight for sure. But I know I also don't need to be afraid of it because I'm not doing anything wrong, despite how much I do want to apologize to all of these people. And myself, of course. And today I was, huh?
I very much get that. I understand. Like I said, I look at it as I destroyed a whole decade of my life. You know, and I look at it in the same way, but it's recognizing, like, of course I did. Of course I did. You know, it's just how I learned. It's what I learned. It's the environment I perceived myself to be a part of. I was doing the best I could with what I knew. You know, the best I could with what I'd been exposed to up until that point. Like, there's no judgment. Any judgment I have of it is just me. It's just me. You know, but it really, I mean, it's just what it was.
Yeah, the judgment is unnecessary. I was noticing as well how much I wanted to feel guilty out of some need to feel like I've learned something, as if that will make up for it. But it's just self-flagellation, if that's the word I'm looking for at the end of the day. Yeah, dodging responsibility, trying to be someone you're not. Yeah, and this morning I was feeling very much lighter. I was allowing myself to just, I don't know, say stuff without second guessing myself as much when I was outside, grocery shopping, just saying stuff. Oftentimes I would hold back when people were around me, but this time I was just like, well, if they're uncomfortable, then that's okay as well. Because suffering is a very necessary part. Like if you're suffering just because I'm laughing here looking at the black pepper, then you're probably like you'll probably learn you can probably take something from that. But if I'm holding back just because I'm scared of being alone, just because I'm scared of how I'm being perceived, just because I'm scared that you might beat the shit out of me just because I'm laughing, then I'm not really living. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share for some reason.
It's
Oh,
important. It's important to share it. I mean, because again, it's something you're going through, and it's a perfect example of what we're saying. Like, it's like baptism by fire. And it's like, oh, if I just finally just look at it. And that's it. It's just looking at it and having the strength to recognize that, you know, it doesn't imply anything about you right now. You know, like that urge to go and say sorry to the people that you recognize you had an impact on. The greatest apology ever is to change. I mean, because that's the point, is to actually learn from what you've done. It's not saying you're sorry. Words do nothing. They do nothing, you know, but if that person ever does come across you and you're talking to them, you can say it, but they're going to see it more in who you are. Right? Because the words are hollow on their own. You can go and say, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, now I'm better. All right, I feel good now. Right? It doesn't do shit. But if you change, if you actually look at it without going to say that apology to soothe yourself, right? But to actually look at it and go, I've learned. So that way there is no apology necessary. You've genuinely learned. And it's like I always say, and I've said it many times, like you can feel guilt or you can learn. You can't do both. Right? You can't do both.
There's a strange satisfaction in feeling the guilt instead. It's like, because it does allow for you to not do anything about it, feeling guilty, even judging yourself. Like there are means of avoidance. And I've sat in spots and thought about, you know, all the ways throughout my life that I've, you know, acted incredibly selfishly. And as I do, it's like it's just a means of like it's like that's what I'm doing right there instead of something else. As you said, actually changing, actually shifting, actually taking it in, actually looking at it. Because yeah, apologizing is just a means of feeling better. It's like apologizing doesn't do anything. It's all it is self-serving. It's all it is. It's fascinating how it's pushed to like, oh, go apologize, you know, go say you're sorry. Like as a kid, you know, that's like a focus. And it doesn't actually, that's not the teacher at all. That's actually just avoiding responsibility, avoiding taking it in by continuing to apologize instead of just changing, instead of just acting differently.
Which isn't to say that apologies aren't nice. I mean, like I said, if it's one of those things where you're just like, yeah, I totally had that impact on you, you know, and you know, I can never make it up to you because that's the point. Like you can't do anything about it. It's not like all of a sudden your apology is going to erase it from happening in existence. I mean, all it does is really, you know, allow them to maybe recognize that you've recognized how you were a part of what happened. But that's about it. Like that's all you're really doing. It's not like all of a sudden you're going to look back and it's not going to be there. Right? Like you can apologize to that person. You can still beat yourself up after the apology. Right? So it's really important to recognize the apology is not the important part. You know, the learning from it is. And to learn from it, you have to look at it. It's really it. You know, why does it hurt so bad? Why does it hurt so bad? Because almost all of the time, the reason it hurts so bad is also the reason that you hurt that person. Right? Whatever you're running from now is what you were running from then, often. So you may as well just look at it and feel it and allow the memory to become something that strengthens you rather than scares you. Jazz.
Yeah, I think it's really important to be feeling all of this because it is so easy to run away from it, like using excuses or apologies or, I don't know, creating stories about it. It's really just taking it in and allowing that to inform your existence. Because all of that stuff I wasn't feeling because I couldn't. There was a lot. There was a lot of layers on top of that that I had to feel through first. that I had to let go of first. And then the next cycles that unfolded allowed me to see deeper and deeper until I was letting go enough of my need to recognize the kind of impacts I've had without recognizing them before. Like it's stuff that I've noticed, for example, with the gender transition as well, in terms of the kind of impacts that had. But it's stuff that I wasn't able to look at the time that I was going through it because of the need that was clouding my ability to see. And it's really interesting how it is harder to take in those considerations to feel what is literally happening right in your existence because you are so blinded by that chase, by that need to get somewhere, by that habitual pattern of looking away from that thing because I don't know why. But yeah, it's been nice, honestly, because I feel like I'm allowing myself to feel so much more, and it feels very enriching because life is not just what I felt like it needed to be. There's so much more to existence, and I'm grateful for that because fuck yeah, fuck yeah, existence. Whoop whoop.
Yeah, that's how I've been feeling, Jazz. Like I've been feeling just every feeling is valid. You know what I mean? Every feeling or an experience that I'm having is just what is going to be happening. You know what I mean? So like to go out and be experiencing things, just like not having that give a fuck and just going and having conversations and talking to people normally when you wouldn't, or even to yourself in public. Like I talk to myself in public. I was like couple of weeks ago, I was out there dancing. You know, I had my headphones on and I'm in the middle of a city, you know, just like doing my thing. Like who gives a shit? You know, there's no like rules on how to live your life and how to have your experience. And on the other side of that too, when we're kind of like feeling guilt and other feelings, or like I don't know, whatever we feel that we would kind of deem as maybe not a desirable feeling, those things are like fine to have too, you know, because like those are learning experiences, if at the very least. But generally, if I tie into any kind of like idea of like a certain type of way that I want to feel as like ideal, and I'm not like open to experiencing all of it, then I'm going to be suffering. That's like what causes that. You know what I mean? Just my need to like say this is a better feeling than that one. So I've been leaning more into like just open to experiencing whatever I'm experiencing, and that generally has like really quieted my mind because I'm not like I don't have all this mind chatter going on in the background, like, oh, I wish things were this way, or I wish you wouldn't have said that, or I wonder how I came off, you know, like all that shit that used to kind of like go on all the fucking time. Like it's just not happening as much because I'm just here to experience. And it's not even like there is no judgment of that, no matter what Jay has done before in his life up to this moment. Like it's all cool, but here we are now, you know what I mean? And so like that's where to be, you know, like, so I applaud you for that. You're fucking doing it. So like on the flip side though, feeling the shame or whatever and guiltiness or whatever, I don't know the specifics of the situation, but it doesn't matter. But to know that feeling those things is just, that's just as fine and okay too, because like these feelings, they just want to get felt, they want to be acknowledged and noticed. So you said, look at, I feel you there, guilt, and then it just kind of went, okay, see ya, and they just kind of go out and fly away. Like once you kind of just acknowledge it, they're gone, basically. You know what I mean? So that's at least how I've been feeling it lately, because I've been feeling all kinds of stuff, like all up and down and neutral and all, you know, all around it in the body and mind, spirit sometimes. I'm like, you know, just kind of aware of as much as I can be in the moment, you know. So it's been all over the place lately. So I could feel you with that.
Yeah. And I'm finding more and more that all of it's pointing to something, not specifically, but there's something there. And like, if you're just trying to avoid certain feelings, you're not looking at them. It's like that compass in a sense, like indicative of something. So, yeah, being able to look at them but not judge yourself because you're feeling them, I think is where I've kind of gotten to. Right?
Hi. I've been enjoying listening to the conversation about like just heading on that resistance and recognizing like all feelings, everything that's coming up, it's all good. And I've been doing that as well, of course, no surprise. But it even popped up today of just like this moment where my heart was starting to race. I felt like I was getting anxious, and this week been doing parent teacher conferences, and I was in the middle of speaking to a parent, and I felt my heart starting to race, and there was that urge of like, oh fuck, what's happening here? And the resistance, but like everything else, like when those feelings come up, no matter what the situation is presenting, I find myself like relaxing more and not immediately judging myself for having these feelings. Like, oh no, like you were saying, Jay, like, these shouldn't be happening. This shouldn't be happening right now. Ray, what you were saying, this shouldn't be happening. As soon as I let go of that, because what the fuck do I know? It shouldn't be happening. And it was fine. Also, it was fine. My heart raced a little bit, and that's what happens. And then when you breathe and you move past it, and what could have turned into years ago, me like almost avoiding the situation, wanting to leave, wanting to like be by myself, wanting to deal with it on my own. I recognize there's that faith in myself, that trust in myself that I got this. It doesn't, maybe I'll pass out. That's fine, but like I doubt it. And it's okay if it does happen, because then I don't want to be, there's the letting go of like, I don't want to be judged for whatever will come up in this moment. What if I do something? What if I say something that I fuck up, or I, make a fool of myself? It doesn't matter. It doesn't change the fact, like, it's not going to alter who I am. It might be a situation that happened, but not taking it personally in a way that's like, oh, now I gotta, this becomes a part of who I am. And I feel like it's been interesting letting that go of that fear of judging whatever's gonna come up, judging how other people are judging me. I know we talk about this all the time, but it's all part of the conversation. It's just been interesting to see what happens when you let go of all that, because it still comes, as we know, it comes up. And so it's like, what do you do with it when it comes up now? Instead of resisting, instead of turning away, when that's always an option. And then sometimes I'll choose that option, and then I go, oops, that didn't really help. That only caused more tension. That only caused, but that's where I like the learning component of what we're talking about. So, okay, you go through that shit. Maybe you do fuck up. Maybe you do have these situations. And then you notice what comes up when that happens, and you don't judge yourself for that happening, but you just you push forward, and you make the changes necessary, I guess, necessary. But I don't know. Just wanted to jump in. I love letting go of that resistance.
Well, it's just it, and it's especially fitting of the conversation just because Dune is currently such a big thing in the conversation for everybody. But that's the whole point of, fear is the mind killer. I'll face my fear and let it pass through me. And when it's gone, I will remain. And that's the point. Like, we run from our fear, we run from all of these things instead of just going, right, but that doesn't actually physically stop me from going through this, right? Like, it's not like all of a sudden because I'm afraid of the conversation that I lack the ability to have the conversation, right? It's just superimposed. And so it's just going on despite it. And the more you can do that, the more you recognize that they were never really that important. Those thoughts were never really that important. And that's when they fade. That's when they fade, is when you start recognizing truly it was never truth. It was never certainty. It was never control. And you're just like, yeah, all right, well, I have a lot of thoughts about how this can go. Let's find out. And that's really it. There's no commitment. Like, it's probably going to be this. I don't know. It could be. There's a good chance. I could be totally fucking wrong too. And I like that. That admission took me forever to recognize. Like, I'm pretty good at feeling things out. Like, people who know me know I got a pretty good feel for things. I tend to be sensitive because I tend to pay attention. That said, though, I'm often wrong, and happily. Because all it means is that I really don't know. Regardless of how good I might get at paying attention, that's never going to guarantee any kind of knowledge whatsoever. You can't have control out of that. All you can do is have a little bit more influence as shit's happening. Right? That's it. And so I love the fact that you came on and shared that with us. And I just want to say, as a parent, I'm sorry that you had to deal with one of my kind.
Jazz.
I appreciate you sharing that as well. That definitely led to an insight about how I prefaced what I said with, I don't know why I'm saying this, because I was holding on to the idea that because I'm coming into the conversation with something, then that's doing something wrong. So I just wanted to share that.
I think it's great. It's like, I don't know why I'm doing this, but it's happening. It's like the story of my life. That's pretty much it, right? And I like the fact that now this is the roundtable. So it's like, I don't know why I'm doing this. It's like, regardless of your reasons, this is the roundtable now, right? And that's the nice part about it, is our reasons don't really matter at the end of the day, right? Because what would have happened? You wouldn't have brought up what you wanted to bring up, and we would have continued talking about fucking peanut butter and pizza for a bit until somebody else brought up something that they probably felt wasn't the appropriate thing to bring up, and that would have been the fucking roundtable. See what I'm saying? Right? Like, it doesn't matter what we think of it. Just do it. Throw the dice. Let it play out. But every time we're like, but how are the dice gonna fall? It's like, you don't even know what game you're playing. Like, it doesn't matter how the dice fall if you don't know whether or not you need high dice or low dice. Like, you don't even know what the fucking rules are. Just roll the dice.
Oh man. And we just make up. It's like, no, it would be better if this happened. Like, that's not even the game. That's just you assuming that. And then rolling and being like, pits are sweating, like, oh God, I hope it's a 4 and a 5. Like, that doesn't indicate anything. You're just gonna pick them up and roll them again. And then you're gonna do it again. And no one's even checking what numbers are there. You just keep rolling. And there's no indicator ever. But there's people watching and they're like, oh, bummer. Should have been a 6. Like, nope, not that either. 2 1s, that's the best. Nope. Yeah. Do you know that? Like, yeah, because I'm happy. Since you're like fucking watching someone roll dice and judging them for what numbers they get.
But if the game never ends, then there's no winner or loser. Like, that's the whole point. The rolling of the dice is our life. This is the game, right? You got to keep rolling because that's the point. That is what you're doing, right? So all of a sudden it's like, was this roll going to matter? What, in the countless fucking rolls you're going to do for the rest of your existence? No, probably not a great deal. And there's a lot of rolls going on in that. You want to average out how they're going. Good luck. Amanda, hello and welcome. And everybody who hasn't already checked it out, do check out Dualistic Unity Real every Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern time, where Jackie and Amanda basically just go off about whatever the fuck they're feeling. And you can participate in the comment section and help inform the episode. And of course, it's just a lot of fun because Andrew and I get a day off and we get to be part of the spectators, which is kind of a nice treat. Amanda, welcome.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, definitely. Fridays, we just shoot the shit, just like this roundtable, where you're not really coming with an agenda. And that never seemed like a problem when you were on the playground. You didn't come with like an agenda and objectives and life very much felt like a game without any rules. And then all of a sudden, rules entered the scenario, and this game turned to torture. And you're like, wait a second, this was fun a minute ago. And yet someone will ask you, aren't you having the best time? And you're like, yeah. Because there's so much pressure to be having fun in this series of self-torture patterns where you're just feeling guilty and feeling shameful, and most of that is just to maintain the idea that there's a you that could be shameful, because we're all just doing our best, making guesses, you know, and making a lot of our choices based on our assumptions, because you've got to do the right thing. You've got to do the right path. You've got to be a good person. And, up until the point where, I thought that going against that was like anti-conformist. And I was like, I'm a rebel. And it's like, yeah, but that was the identity of being a rebel. So, you're still caught up in the net of trying to become something but I'm not trying. That's officially my title, is not trying, but there's no getting out of this identity loop, other than, just not trying to be anything, not trying to maintain anything. And so when things bubble up to the surface, you're like, yeah, I could think about that. And so this reminds me of the tinnitus. And so I had fainted onto a concrete floor, cracked our head open, and it damaged the hearing in my left ear. And so I can't hear anymore. It took me a year to realize I had lost hearing. I had no idea that I did it, because I still had one great ear. Like, my right ear is my MVP. We were out in the world navigating, doing just fine. And I had no idea that we had lost a hearing until the tinnitus kicked in. And that's that constant ringing. You ever turn your TV to like the staticky channels, those and that technically was going on nonstop. And I never fucking picked up on it. And so some of my insecurities and fears will feel like they're ringing in my ears. Sometimes it's ringing so loud, and sometimes I don't hear a fucking thing. And I don't know actually if the ringing stops or not. I have no idea if the ringing actually stops. It just doesn't make any noise sometimes. So it just feels like my insecurities and my fears are the ringing in my head that goes away when I stop trying to create silence. And so it just but I honestly, and I've actually never thought about it in this way right now, where it's like, I actually don't know if the ringing stopped. I just thought of that for the first time right now. And we are like 10 years into this ringing in the ear. So happy 10-year anniversary, body. We have just learned something else. I don't know if the ringing actually stops. It just doesn't make a fucking peep sometimes. And sometimes I don't think about all the ways that I couldn't measure up, and sometimes that's all I can think about. But it's the ringing stops when I stop trying to force silence, and the relaxation from focusing on my insecurities stops when I stop trying to get rid of them. And when I stop trying to get rid of them, I guess I pause the process of building an identity that doesn't measure up in some way. Or at least that's what it feels like right now.
Well said. I like the fact that what you're saying there is like me focusing on it's only exacerbating my attention on it. Like all it's doing is amplifying it, when I could just let it heal and get out of the way. And that's often the case. That's exactly it. But as long as you're focused on it, that's all you're going to be focused on, right? When you're focused on the pain, you just want a solution. And it's not until you start to let go of the source of the pain, right? Or rather, the source of the amplification of the pain, because the pain itself is just what it is. We've always had a pain as a part of the experience of being alive. And again, as we've mentioned earlier, suffering is informative when you're not running from it. But when you are running from it, it's all you see. It's all you see, and it blinds you to everything else. So just allowing it to be often just allows it to, heal on its own. And the healing on its own is, once again, just what happens when you're not in there fucking it up. All right. And that's often the case. That's why we end up injuring ourselves, is we're often not paying attention. I'm going to pass this over to Andrew, and then we'll get to Levi next.
Oh yeah. Yep. The the focus on it. is interesting. Because like everything's always informative and indicative, and it's not necessarily something to run from. But if you're always trying to be comfortable all the time, then you will, and it won't be as informative. Levi?
Yeah. No, I've often got the feeling that, like, especially when I'm like on a shroom trip, especially like it's just how often I'm trying to fix things. That's kind of the things that kind of keep popping into my head when I'm on like, yeah, just the idea that I'm in there, you know, trying to do something instead of just leaving it alone and just living my life. And that's kind of I think a little bit of what's been going on lately, and the rolling the dice thing really like brought it up again a little bit for me, because I've kind of looked at all the reasons why I'm doing or why I want to do everything I want to do, and it's kind of stopped me from doing anything for a while, because it's just felt so, yeah, I've just been feeling that it's kind of I've been doing things for the wrong reasons, basically. And then lately I've just and it's kind of everything has just been very empty, like energy, like it's been very neutral, like not bad in any way, but it's just there's haven't been like a lot of energy and ideas and, you know, like bursts of like things I want to do, because I've kind of just been looking at this kind of and trying to kind of I'm kind of stopping myself, basically. And just lately, the last couple of days, I've just been starting to do stuff again, and just starting to move, go out, like do some work on the computer, and just do things like as I think you said in the live before, Ray, like just not like debate so much, because that's what I'm doing. I'm sitting there debating, like, oh, why do I want to do it? And, you know, why should I do it? Why shouldn't I do it? And all this shit. And I'm paralyzed by it. It's just unnecessary. And I've just been feeling like as soon as kind of I started doing things again, there just come this flood of ideas and energy and things I wanted to do, and I've been doing it also, like a lot of it, and it's almost too much now, you know. And it's because I just started doing stuff again, so I feel like the debating that is going on in the head, that's just, you know, taking the hose and just breaking it and stopping the flow of everything that potentially can happen through me. Um, so that's been really cool to just feel like the difference, like just do something. Like it doesn't fucking matter if you do it because of some shallow, like there will, as you said, Amanda, like the ego or like the identity will always be there somehow. It's just don't attach so much to it. Yeah, so it's been really cool to notice that shift the last couple of days. So
I
yeah.
appreciate the fact that you keep coming to the roundtables and expressing these shifts as you experience them, because again, this can be a very intellectual conversation where you look at it as, oh, I got to dissolve the ego to get to this place, and it creates this path, and it does all that you never get out of, which we've talked about numerous times. Or you can just let go, you know, or you can just be here. And then all of a sudden, that whole fixation on escaping your suffering starts to fade away, because you're not focused on the thing that's creating that suffering, right? You're not perpetuating it yourself by trying to run away from yourself. And so I like the fact that what we're seeing here in these roundtables, especially, are people, everyday people, people just like me, people just like you, listener, who are just applying this shit and actually experiencing a cessation of the suffering, right? Not that the suffering disappears, but that it becomes something else, right? It's not that it stopped being suffering, but it's not received in the same way, right? And so it stops being a point of conflict, a point of all of a sudden like judgment, where you're like, this shouldn't be, because you're using it, right? You're actually aligning with it. You're feeling it. You're being informed by it. And that doesn't stop it from being quote unquote painful. That doesn't stop it being translated as the ego. And that's the whole point. But it's the resistance to it that creates that amplification of that suffering. It's the need to get away from it, to control it, to do all that shit. And then as long as you're doing that, you get more and more desperate for a way out. Right? Which is why we go through these stages of ego development, and all of a sudden we're like exploring every spiritual path, we're exploring every fucking teacher, we're exploring because we keep doing the same thing and we don't realize that we're doing it. And we're even doing it in looking for that path, which is the mind fuck. Right? But it doesn't nothing else makes sense to us. We're like, I'm suffering. I got to keep finding the way out. It's like, it's the way out that's making you suffer. No, I just got to find the right way out. And that ego that you're enforcing when you're like, I need to find a way out, is all about your preference and your judgment and your fear and your insecurity and your idea of you and all that stuff. And there's the reason you want out so badly, and you can't escape that way. You have to just accept it. Just let it go. The only reason it's a point of conflict is because you're in conflict with it. Right? That's the reason it's a point of conflict, is because you don't like it. Does it stop being conflict when you stop being in conflict with it? No. Somebody's still going to come over to you and disagree with you, but you're not going to find that to be a point of conflict. You're going to find that to be another opportunity to change and grow. Right? It's not like conflict still isn't happening in a perceptual way, but you're not seeing it as conflict rather than just the movement of what is. So it helps to remember that as long as you're suffering, all you're doing is looking for a way out of that suffering, and you're blinding yourself to the fact that you're the one causing it to a very large degree. It's not that you're causing all of your suffering, because the reality of suffering will always exist within duality, for sure. It's just that you're causing suffering to be something it doesn't have to be, which is a hell all its own, instead of just another current to learn from.
Yep. And there's opportunities in that all the time. All the time. Jazz.
There are a lot of opportunities in that, for sure. Allowing yourself to feel your existence, allowing yourself to feel your suffering is what allows you to feel for other yous. That's how you connect, quote unquote. If you're not allowing yourself to feel yourself, you're not allowing yourself to feel your suffering, your pain, all of those quote unquote negative feelings, then what you're doing is saying that you shouldn't be feeling that and no one should be feeling that. And what happens then is that you're either putting yourself up on a pedestal where you're saying that you're not feeling that even though you are, or you're saying that no one should be feeling that, and you're constantly looking for the cessation of something that is going to cause so much conflict in general. But allowing yourself to feel all of that is so beautiful, because we're all going through it. We're all going through basically the same things, even if it's under different colored dressing, colored window dressing. It's all very similar things. It's all the same things. And so yeah, these past few experiences have been very informative for me, because I mean, today, a couple of hours ago, I was getting food at a store, and I was in line. And this person like goes to the front and like cuts everyone off so that they can see what they want, like because they want to see at the pastries what the pastries are. And so they like go to the where the pastries are, basically going into the middle of the line and to see what the pastries are so they can order quicker. Oh, I don't know. I don't know why they were doing it, but that's what they were doing. And immediately I felt like emotions inside of me. And so I allowed myself to feel them. And so the thought that came up was like, oh, they're not considerate. That's the thought that came into my head. And so then I asked myself, am I considerate? And so then it's like, yeah, I do think of myself as considerate. And then I was like, oh wow, what an identity. And then immediately what came up was, I don't think of myself as considerate as much as I feel the need to consider myself as considerate because of the fear of not being considerate. So I'm just like scared. I'm not considerate, I'm just scared. And another thing that popped into my head was considerate is not something that I even could be. Considerate is something that I am, which is to say that considerations happen and I'm taking them into account all the time. It's just what considerations am I taking into account? And I mean, last night's experiences made me realize just how considerations can either be hidden or visible based on my level of need and attachment. So, I mean, there's so much empathy in that immediately those feelings just like dropped, and I just felt like a surge of love for this person. I was like, fuck, dude. But that only happened because I allowed myself to feel that discomfort that initially arose. If I didn't allow myself to feel that discomfort, or if I attached to it as meaning something about me, then easily I could have taken that in another direction where I was making it more about me, more about how I compare to this person. When all of us are just doing our best all the time, and I don't need to be questioning myself, whether it's Jazz or anyone else, because we're taking in the considerations that we can.
Always taking in those considerations and just realizing that, your experience isn't separate from the things that you do, the ways that you act, the actions you take. Like, it's a cycle. It's informative. It's like input output sort of thing too. Like, even with the, looking in the mirror thing, or having more considerations about my appearance. It's like, without that, without as much input into that, there's less concern about the entirety of that, actions done. It's more like just being involved instead of something separate from what's going on, because it's not being reinforced so often. But it's like the thoughts are informative of the actions are informative of the thoughts, and the swells and the ups and the downs, and how personal they seem. Sorry.
Something that came up for me as I was listening to this, I think Jazz, you said, I don't know, but like it made me think of when people share, or when I do it, I'll speak from my perspective of like claiming like my suffering or my pain, my sadness, my anxiety, whatever, like claiming it as mine instead of recognizing like, no, it's not mine. First of all, it's everybody's. Let's be real. Like we're all. It's not like I'm the only one suffering. Of course not. I'm not the only one feeling pain. Like that's just what part of existence is. So like when I remove the claim of it being mine and it being like a reason why I am the way I am, or it having some effect on it me because I'm claiming it in some way, instead of just recognizing it's part of all of the things. And it's just part of what's happening now, or what is. It just is what it is, type of thing. Instead of claiming it, I feel like, just like what we've been saying before, of that letting go, or as soon as I'm not getting wrapped up in the shit, or I look at the shit and let it go, it kind of releases itself. I don't know. So that was just something that popped up. I haven't even processed it myself, to be honest, but it was something that came up at one point. I originally raised my hand because um, I think, Levi, you were sharing about, and I think we've talked about this in the past too, of, and I find myself, when I do it, it's funny. Questioning, going that back and forth, that debate, the why am I doing this? Whatever. That's just that back and forth that takes place. I feel like there's almost like a lack of trust in myself. Like I'm getting like caught up in the thinking instead of just doing. And when I find myself trusting, like making that leap, like that skydive, I just like visually picture like almost like me jumping backwards, and I'm just like gracefully being held up by, the nature of letting things go and just trusting that I will be okay, whether I smack the ground or not. I'm just like, it's okay. And I feel like if I get wrapped up in that thought process, I find myself, I'm not trusting myself. Let me just trust that whatever I choose, that's the choice, and that's like okay, and it's all okay. And so it's like, I thought of that visual that came to mind when you were sharing that. So I just wanted to throw that in.
Okay.
Let go or be dragged. That's what brings me that to mind for me. I love that saying. I love hearing that. It's so cool. And I've been kind of feeling that today. Because I've been, noticing when I'm in interactions with people, like my level of responsibility as far as like having any personal weight on how the interaction is going, it's not quite there. Like, and so like there's different times when people will like, kind of people are people, right? And they're running on their emotions, and they're doing things that think that are like making themselves feel better by, making other people feel not so good sometimes, out there in the world. That's kind of what a good pastime is, that people will take and like shit on somebody else for some reason, for whatever they do or look like or act like or talk or whatever. So, these things kind of happen, and I'm aware, so I notice when people are like being some type of a way around in like my presence lately. And it's not, I'm just like, now I'm just, at one point it would have been very like offensive, like I would have been like, why they, me, right? But now it's more just kind of like, oh, that's interesting, because like that's me, like that's somehow me talking to me, so I don't like take offense to it. I'm not like angry with this person when they like disparage me in some type of a way, for example. And I don't like, though at the same time will like defend myself, like as appropriate, you know what I mean? I'm not a doormat, but I do understand that, things kind of happen. And so I've been kind of noticing, but just my general sense of self has been like sort of taking a different form, you know what I mean? And like, I don't know, I've had this kind of image in my head lately, and it's like, I got this flagpole, and I'm sitting planting this flagpole. A flagpole is basically just the center of awareness, like, right. So it's just now in the moment. And then around this flagpole, there's this kind of field of like body, mind, and spirit. And here's, me. The flagpole is basically just the center to everything, and I'm hanging on to this. And there's a lot of times where I kind of get like lost, and I'll like lose the grip on the flagpole. I'm just kind of going around, but once in a while I get caught up a little bit in the mind. I'll get, wrapped up in my thoughts about how things are and all that stuff. Or once in a while, I get wrapped up in a little bit much in the body where I'll just get to working out and I'm like getting my energy out that way. And I'm like, oh, like that becomes important to me. Or in the spirit. And like that becomes a little bit more important than the center, say, sometimes in that flagpole, for example. And I get kind of lost in that. But like the more and more I'm going around this flagpole, the more and more I'm noticing that the flagpole is there, you know? So it's kind of like that when it comes down to my interactions with people, it's just kind of more or less like that's me, you know. I'm really starting to see that flagpole as like the point of where I'm experiencing life from, which is like doing a fuckload of good for Jay because I don't have to worry about that shit. You know what I mean? Like I used to. So it's nice to just I can experience that and at the same time experience like the good stuff too, but I don't have to get tied up in that either, you know, because there's always, you know, good things going on. And I'm also like been thinking about more or less, I don't know, and any feeling that I get to having an opinion about myself is just kind of slipping off the flagpole anyways, you know. That's getting lost in the mind, body, or spirit kind of a thing, but it's just kind of experiencing that sense of just having that, you know, it's a grounding presence is what I've been feeling lately. And it's like I don't have to defend or promote or anything. I'm just kind of being. And the experience is here in front of me. Got this moment to do with what I want, you know, with as best as I can. And if I just like follow my heart and lead with that instead of my thoughts and feelings about stuff, I just kind of like let go. Like Marie said, just basically let go. It's so easy. It's like there's nothing that I really have to do, defend or anything, because I know it's just like me. You know what I mean? It's been pretty cool.
Yeah, I've been feeling quite a bit of that, Jay. Like, just it's not really acceptance of what you are, but it's just like, this is what I am right now. Like me worrying about what that is or what's expressed or what should or shouldn't be expressed, like isn't a necessary component. Like I'm not going to know anyway. There's not a right way to act or express. And so who am I to jump in there and think that I can do something the right way? Because if that's not there, then kind of just that flagpole in the experience, like, it's what I am. Like, who am I to think I have control over that or judge can should do anything to shift whatever's going on right now, like wherever things are taken, you know, whatever goes down, like who am I to get in the way of that? It's like, what am I getting in the way of? Who? You're doing it anyway, gonna be here anyway, might as well be involved. Amanda.
Oh my goodness. I used to love getting my way, or at least I thought that I was getting my way because, you know, people were doing things in the way that I thought I wanted them to do it, but it never actually made me feel better for very long. And it just stopped being worth it. It just stopped being worth it trying to make something happen, force something to happen, force someone to, even if they didn't agree with me, it still was like, I almost wanted like straight up worship, like intellectual worship to some degree. I can definitely be honest about what drove me for a lot of the times that I would want to get into like a verbal battle with somebody. Was I wanted them to be on their fucking knees telling me how fucking right I was. It wasn't just that I didn't want you to disagree with me, is that I wanted you to straight up worship where I was coming from, because I wanted that to mean something about me. I wanted that to prove that I was, not only am I better than you, all you motherfuckers know it. I wanted, and it was just, oh my God, how fucking toxic that is. And so that's why I can recognize that so easily when I see people doing that. And it's so funny because the way that I used to be like 10 years ago, I wanted to verbally eviscerate you. I wanted to use words to make you feel like you were less than scum, that you would wish to be the scum on the bottom of my fucking shoe. And I got really good at that, man, because I got really good at building and destroying identities. I was so good at that. That's what I spent all my time doing. And I would read books, I'd watch shows, I'd go here, I certainly would talk to everyone. And it just became this never ending pursuit. And I would absolutely, want to get louder, and I'd want to lash out, and I'd want to call people names, and I'd want to, make them feel like they did the ultimate thing by going against what a carefully thought up basis for life like mine was. And now I just ask lots of questions, because I'm just so curious as to what it looks like to hold on with a white knuckle grip from the outside, because I definitely know what it was like to live that and to grow up in a house full of people that were really good at that and that I worshiped. And so I wanted to be on the receiving end of that toxic dynamic. And I thought that that was winning. And I would definitely go from, trying to outwit you, to trying to be louder than you, to trying to insult you. And now I just like to ask like tons of questions. I'm just so curious as to, why do you think that matters so much? What do you really think that you're getting out of this? Do you really think that we can't see how needy you are? Do you really think that that kind of desperation doesn't just fucking repel people? The example that I love to give is like the dating environment, because usually that's the example that almost no one can't see, in their own history. Is you ever had somebody who liked you who was so fucking needy that even just the thought of them made you sick? Like you were like, they were just so needy. They were just like, they would like die for you. They would like throw themselves off of a cliff if you were like, I love you on the way down. They heard that. Like it was just like the fact that they were just like, they'd wake up and you just had a feeling that they would wake up. And this is all assumptions, right? Like they'd wake up and I assume that they would think about you. They would think about the next time that they would see you. Nowadays, we've got social media, we've got the online presence, so people can stalk you online and develop this whole story about how you could be together and how they resonate with you. And it's like, yeah, you may resonate with something that I have said, but you can't actually say that you resonate with me, because if we haven't hung out like that, you're not actually talking about me. Back the fuck up. You are not talking about me. You are talking about words that you found meaning in, and you attach that meaning to me because I said those words. Well, look in the fucking mirror if you want to attach to meanings to words that you came up with, because it certainly doesn't need to be me. And it certainly doesn't need to be anyone else. Like it's just I understand from my own personal experience that feeling, and I guess I just experienced that, and I experienced it because I thought that I wasn't enough. And really that's what it feels like now. It's just that on some level I didn't think that I was enough, and I had to do everything in my power to become enough. And once I found my path to enough, I would die on that fucking hill, because the idea of not being meaningful, the idea of not having any value just seemed like hell. It seemed like torture, like to have no meaning. And it's like, yeah, but the meaning that I used to create with other people is because I was just satisfying their needs. So even when I thought that I was needed, I was really just I was a great closer on your needs. Need is X, I could be Y, we figure it out, the equation is solved, right? And so it wasn't that people actually needed me when I thought they needed me. They really liked the way that I made them feel, but they didn't care who was the one making them feel that way. And I could feel that, because I know what it was like when I was on the other end, and I was taking advantage of people who were needy to me, and I didn't want them, but I loved the way that they made me feel. And so I would keep them around to some degree because it felt really good to have somebody worshiping at the altar that I built. And so that's why I saw a lot of people wanting friendships and relationships and wanting to be a part of, certain religious organizations and certain groups. And it was like, they didn't really like the people that they hung out with. They didn't really like the people that they dated and that they called their friends. They really loved the way that those people made them feel. So people were just a means to an end. And so it's like that shit repels you, you know? And so when you think of a guy or a girl or however they identify, and they're like almost like clinging to you, like they want to like handcuff themselves to you because they have told themselves that they can't live without you. That feeling of having somebody wanting to attach to you makes you want to run in the other direction because you can feel that shit. And it's not just people that want to date you or sleep with you or marry you or whatever. It's also people that just want to put you in a teacher student dynamic. They want you to look up to them. It's the friends who want you to be their BFF forever and to get like matching tattoos. Nobody needs to be that fucking cleanly and still have a good time. And that's what I've learned is that without any of the weight, without any of the attachments, without any of the labels, I still can have an amazing time just sharing a moment that I am building with someone in that moment with me. And it doesn't really need to be any more than that. And when it starts to become more than that, the weight is felt by everybody in the room because I can feel weight being built because I know what it was like to build weight because I still do that. And it's just something that I appreciate, but I certainly don't mind asking questions about why I might be building a current weight or why someone else might be building a current weight without meaning to have anybody agree with me, but just because I'm so curious, you know, what's the motivation behind the weight? Because it's usually not something that we'd actually like to talk about. And there's an opportunity there.
Absolutely. Isn't that interesting? It's just dealing with your own need. It really is. You know, like if you're coming to a retreat, for example, with a need to be taught something or a need to teach something, don't come. You know, like that's really not the point. The point is to be free of that shit. It really is, you know, to be able to just be yourself and not attach to anyone out of need, not need to lean on them. And then if they want to be there, oh my God, so much appreciation, right? Because you don't need them to be. So you're just like, this is dope. I get personal empowerment and the gravy. This is great, right? Like, and I get all these dope people to hang with. But, you know, it's that need. And it's interesting. This happened just recently. We got a message on our Instagram, Dualistic Unity Instagram. And it was from somebody who had been on the Discord and had idealized numerous different people on the Discord who had showed them any degree of empathy and then immediately started to attach to them. And it got to the point where we kicked them off the Discord. It's like, you got to go. Like, this is just getting a bit much because they weren't doing anything with the Discord except self-validating and looking for attention from everybody else. And so we asked them to leave. And of course, immediately they got mad and they're like, oh, am I being banned by the king of dualistic unity? Like it was this big thing. Oh yeah, no, it was funny. And then later on, messages on Instagram saying, you know, I really miss you guys. I love your show, blah, blah, blah. And the last message we got was, I would die for you guys. And the intention behind that is to let us know, like, I really care about myself. Right? Because that's what that is. It's like, I would die for you guys. You don't even fucking know me. You know, I responded that we prefer you live for you. You know, because that's very much the case. But right there, like that person thinks that they're communicating something that is going to manipulate me or Andrew into going, oh, wow, they really care. And all they're really doing is showing how manipulative they are. Right? The first thing I thought was, I'm going to be sick because that's fucking brutal, especially after listening to the podcast for as long as they have, to not recognize that that's coming across the way that it is. You know, and that's the point, is there's no nice way to deal with that at that point except to just go, that's what it is. Right? That's just what it is. And they can deal with it or not, which is exactly what I'm doing right now by talking about it. Right? Like I'm saying, this is the impact that you're having. And as we just experienced in the comment section of this recording, people don't like to listen to what's being brought back to them. People don't like feedback, right? At all. I'll listen to it for sure. I like listening to other people's points of view when they're rational and coming from a place where they're actually just being themselves and they're expressing something that's worked for them, you know, but often that's not where they're coming from. They're coming from a place where they need to tell you this and you need to agree with them and they won't fucking relent. Right. And that's the whole point, is just to go, no, you know, too bad. That's just how it's going to go. And you're not going to like it. And it's like, well, why can't we all just, you know, be respectful of each other? It's like, but you're not, you know, you're not. It's just because of that need. You know, and that's all. It's just twisting everything that you do. And then you're like, oh, well, you're just seeing yourself in me. And that's an easy cop out. It's the I'm rubber, you're glue thing. You know, Marie hears this with kids all the time, I'm sure. You know, nuh-uh, it's you. Nuh-uh, it's you. Right. And as much as that is true that people are judging based on how they judge themselves, if people aren't judging you, but actually telling you, like, hey, man, you come across as kind of a dick, like you're coming across as forceful, you're not listening to anybody, and they continue to tell you that, numerous people saying the same thing, perhaps, and this is, I know, an extreme option, there may be some undercurrent of a message. There might be, you know, a common denominator that you can in fact take in, not to judge yourself, but to take in, to modify, to align a little bit with the reality that you think that you're a part of, but don't embody that knowing. Right? That's the whole point. Like, if it's just, if this is all one, who are you trying to convince? Right? And if everybody's just seeing the reflection of themselves, what are you seeing when you're lashing out at them? So it's important to recognize that, and to go through this uncomfortable stuff, and to recognize that, again, like, nobody has to tolerate you. That's the nice part. You know, like, you can think you're right up to the point where people kick your ass out the door. You know, and then you can be right by yourself and do nothing. Is that right? Is that really doing anything at all? You know, it's not. So I'm gonna pass the baton.
And it's interesting when you start looking at needs and almost like just where they come from, like different discussions start happening. There's shifts when you start looking at your own sort of needs, and when people are catering to needs or feeling like they need something from you, and when you don't play into those so much, there's all of a sudden like opportunity in that, like in those shifts. It's like the person has a chance to like kind of like, I don't mean to say wake up in that sense, but just like come out of a bit of a haze and be like, oh, there's something going on here. Let's look at this. Let's pay attention to this. Maybe look at where that person is coming from. And it's so fascinating how, you know, some desire for control will create certain expectations that wouldn't otherwise be there. And if you're not willing to look at, you know, your own need and where that's coming from, that's almost cutting you down, then it's going to have to be someone else. It's going to have to be someone else doing something wrong. It's like, hold up. Why do you think you have control over someone else? Have you looked? Have you looked at that? Have you taken a decent look at that? Do you not want to? Marie?
I think
The
it's funny
baton?
in the what?
I said, the baton is yours.
Thank you. Um, I find it interesting when those moments come up where, you know, you're talking to somebody who feels like they need to try and prove something, need to try to have you believe in something, and then I reflect on like when that shows up for me, and I know it does, in terms of like when I have a friend who's venting about something, or family members who are dealing with stuff and talking stuff, and sometimes I just want to be like, bruh, like just come on, it's all right, like you know, and you kind of want to like shake it out of them. So I get that desire, but then at the same time, when I have relaxed into not pushing that desire and just living it for myself, not only do people notice and question it, there's more allowance to just letting other people be themselves as well. So there's less desire of needing it to get somewhere, to have them believe a certain thing, because then that makes you think that the same thing of a desire for myself to get somewhere, believing if I relax into I don't need that, then why would I need to also think this person does or that person does? It's like um, we're all okay. And I resonate when I see people that are trying to push a certain agenda, and I just often encourage like questioning of what's the desired outcome here, and what's the need for this, because you could just relax into not necessarily knowing and relaxing into being open to hear other people, because if you really truly do believe, like you were saying, Ray, like this is you are all one, then you'll listen to yourself. You'll listen to yourself in the various ways it sounds, and not need to put a a specific I don't know, like not push or force anything, just let it be as it is. So I just think that was interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, it's fascinating when you're not trying to force stuff so much anymore because it goes in so many. You start to realize how many ways you were forcing things or trying to have like control over stuff, forcing it. Then it's like you have to force yourself to stay in control and keep saying the right thing. And it's like this entire kind of route, like my way. What I think is best. Like there's force in that too. It's habitual in a lot of ways. It's not here so much. Jazz, how about you?
Thank you for the baton. Yeah, it's I think it can be important to consider what your priority is, because if you are constantly being pushed against this cognitive dissonance, if you're consistently feeling a lot of pain that you are running away from in the same kind of way over and over again, then there's an option there to consider an alternate path, an alternate option that maybe I am causing my own suffering. And if your priority is your experience, if your priority is not coming out of a need to self-validate or coming out of a need to get somewhere as much as just be with yourself and the experience you're having right now, then you are more willing to look at that, I think, and not necessarily react with the same kind of habitual tendencies that you've always reacted with. An example that came to mind as you guys were talking was that I loved the analogy of the die being thrown and hoping for certain numbers, not knowing what game you're playing. And it's like some games require certain numbers, some games require higher, some games require lower, some games require very specific numbers based on what's happening in the game at that point. And I was just picturing like being stressed throughout that entire thing, not knowing what game you're playing at all, not questioning why you're so stressed, and not even recognizing that you're playing a game. So the intention is to have fun. But you're so stressed. You don't even know what game you're playing. You're so focused on the die at hand and making sure that you're perceived as someone who's just amazing at playing games, and you're just hoping to get the numbers that you have formulated in your head as being the right numbers to get, that you're just constantly throwing the die over and over again, and someone is saying, oh, you just went back two blocks with those numbers, and then you're like, no, but I've been told that I go 5 steps ahead with these numbers. And then the other person is like, oh yeah, but that's another game though. Like I don't know if you recognize that we were playing this game. But it's the tunnel vision, it's the need, it's the not able to take in considerations because you are so tunnel visioned, because you do have some place you want to end up. And every time I have wanted there to be a place that I wanted to end up at, I have not been willing to consider other things. I have not been willing to look at myself because looking at myself was far too painful. Looking at myself was far too scary because I had an idea of myself. I love how it just comes back to just like your idea of yourself. It's like, it's so interesting how one thing can just poison everything if you take it so seriously. If you take it to be something so static and so dear and so necessary for your existence.
Because it's the most beautiful thing at the same time. Not specifically your own idea, but the opportunity to even have it, even have any of it. And it's like we get so caught up in like trying to end it, get rid of it, kill it, end, the whole spectrum that goes with it. It's like, what's the alternative to that? No spectrum. That's it. And there is an experience where it's not even like separate from the spectrum. It's just aligned with the spectrum instead of deviated from the spectrum. Like seeing the whole thing and seeing, like I'm riding the spectrum. I'm feeling a lot right now, feeling this dip, and that's me riding it. Because as soon as it's like, well, got to get out of this dip, it's like, being on like fucking water slide and like holding it. Like, I don't like this part. I got to find a way out. And it's like, just let it keep going. It continues. So it's like that experience. We think people paint it as like so foreign, this thing to get to, like fucking enlightenment and all that bullshit. But it's just aligning with the spectrum of going through what we're going through. And it's like, how seriously do we think our ability to change that is, or to have control over it at all? Like you don't. And that's all the thoughts, the ups and the downs, the experiences, the ups and the downs. How aligned are you? Jay?
Yeah, this is something personal experience with this kind of idea. So things, for whatever the reason, the way things happened when I was younger, I really had a low self-esteem issue. Like self-confidence was just total trash. And so going in, when I was introduced to alcohol and drugs, and I kind of got down the addiction road as far as like to overcome my feelings that the way things should be a certain way. So I'd be like, in my mind, I'm like, this just sucks. My life sucks. Why me? I didn't ask to be here. Um, fucking like all the crazy ass, like that was my worldview. It's just like I totally resist everything that's going on right now, and so like let's just go drink some beers. And so I just drank some beers, and then I would go drink, like it progressed into harder and harder and harder drugs. And then that was like a very serious commitment on me to avoiding like the experience that I could possibly have, just because of that one little seedling of a thought, like, why is this happening to me? And that like changed my whole like course of my life, that thing that I hung on to like that, you know what I mean? And so now I can look at that objectively as not like me being in the situation that I was in, but I am the one that's looking at it. So I can like see the truth in that statement. You know what I mean? That I used to tell myself. And that's just part of being responsible, like for right now, is just seeing that I am not that shit. You know what I mean? And I was like, it's good to be like introspective in a lot of ways, and kind of like as things come up I can diagnose it a little bit. I'm taking a look at it a little bit. I'm like, okay, but I can only do that if I'm like honest enough with myself to like look at some shit. Because some of the shit that I have experienced, like that I've gone through life based on that little seedling of a thought that like, why me? Some of the things I've done, like when you're an addict, you're lying, you're doing stuff to cover your tracks, you're coming up with stories, you're stealing, sometimes you're doing shit that you shouldn't, like just generally harmful to myself and the world around me. And that kind of reflected back on me with me being kind of alone because people didn't want to fucking deal with me and my addict shit and my bullshit that I was doing. You know what I mean? They just were like I have a good heart and I'm like, I have a lot of love in my life and people that care a shit ton about me. So I'm grateful for that. But other than that, I burned a hell of a lot of bridges and I had to look at that shit and say, this is a big steaming pile of shit that I created, but that's not me. Like to then put guilt on myself for that would be to take the shit and then just like smack it right in my face. And so I didn't choose that route. I just decided to, get over my shit, and just kind of step over it instead of slapping myself in the face with it. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean to say that it hasn't affected my life in a lot of ways. That I'm here now, and it's just the way it is. Like I'm here now. That's it. I don't have to judge it. I don't have to put any additional weight on anything that as it is. Like it's just, that's just that addiction period in my life is something that happened, and I grow and I learn and like experience things as best that I can like now. But it's just like not having, I forgot what the whole point of it to start with was. Not important. It was a very personal journey with coming to terms with my shit is basically what it comes down to, and being able to look at things like honestly. It takes a lot of guts just to be honest with yourself, but who else are you going to be honest with if not yourself? You know what I mean? Who else is there? Get real, Jay. So I did.
Absolutely. Damn good point. And it really helps to understand, like, people think about addiction and they're like, oh, drugs. Judgment's addictive. Thinking about yourself is addictive. Trying to find that way out of suffering is addictive. Even the belief that there is a way out of this world is addictive. The belief in heaven is addictive. The belief in God is addictive. All of these things make you feel fucking good. And as a result, they're addictive. And you do the exact same shit as an addict, don't you? You willingly ignore certain things, you cater to your biases, you lie, you manipulate, you do all that, you force yourself on others with no sensitivity or recognition whatsoever because you're a fucking addict. Right? And it's not until you recognize it that you can stop it. Right? But to recognize it and then go, but there's no ending the addiction until life is finished. It's fucking hilarious. Because that's really it, isn't it? It's like, I can't get out of this addiction until I die and existence ceases to be. It's like, no, it's just addict talk. That's all that is.
Real quick, that's kind of coming around full circle to the point that I had wanted to make, was that I went down that road too, because of that's just what I'm used to. You know what I mean? So when it comes to spirituality and awakening, and like you mentioned earlier, you listening to all these different podcasters and checking out different religions and like worship at the altar of gurus that might have something pretty, actually novel to say and stuff like that. It might be pretty damn, impactful and everything. But to think that that's not like, to think that there is a path, like there's anywhere to like get to, like that was something that I noticed in myself too. And I'm like, oh, I fucking see now. You know what I mean? There's really like extremes to this that you can go. And like I've been more or less like I'm dialing things back. I'm dialing back social media usage and stuff like that. But I saw that over time that was a thing that could be an influence in my life. So I've, once you can look at it and take responsibility for it, like anything can be, there's nothing that needs weight to be done. There's nothing even to do. It's the only thing I had to do is just say, oh, look at that. Would you look at that? And that's it, man. And that fucking changes shit. Would you look at that?
Would you look at that? And then it's informed you right there. And the amount of times I've spent like focused on things that I've done or said, and it's like that's doing the same thing that caused you to do that thing. It's doing the same exact thing that got you into the spot that it made sense to do something like that. But it's almost there can be just that focus, and it's addictive in the sense that like if there's something being avoided, almost like all those good thoughts or things that you think are going to make you feel good, like you only need them because there's something going on that you feel like shouldn't be happening, that isn't beneficial, that isn't informative, but it still is. And layering anything on top doesn't actually allow you to take that in and look at it and allow it to sink in. Levi.
Yeah. No, I resonate a lot with running from whatever I'm thinking, feeling, and jumping into, you know, the work path, the alcohol, the food, the spiritual shit, and just chasing after it, you know. There's a way out. And what I originally wanted to say was like, I think it was like yesterday. I was just feeling I was feeling so calm, and it was like this bubble in my chest that was kind of, it felt like warm and bubbly. I was feeling it. I was like, this is nice. Like this is, you know, I started to attach to it, and I was observing this happening live, and it's like, but what even is that? Like, what's the difference like between this thing and other things? It's like it's just that I think it feels good, you know. Anyway, so I was kind of trying to hold on to this thing, and then. Uh, when I woke up today, it wasn't there anymore, you know. I was like, oh, all right, okay. But I just kept going with my day. And I just have to say, like, today has been the most incredible day I've had in a long time. And that's not because I've been feeling so great. It's because it's just, I've been allowing everything. I've been allowing everything to just come up. I have cried today, but it's been an amazing day. And it's just, and I feel like it's been many days like today. It's like, it's, oh man, it's just falling into whatever's happening and just sitting with it. And it's coming like a roller coaster. Shit is coming, and then you're feeling good. You're feeling, it doesn't even matter. It's like, it's just happening, you know? And that's, it's incredible. And I wouldn't trade that for what I was feeling yesterday, you know, just sitting there like, oh, I'm super calm. I'm, you know, all that shit. So yeah, I don't know. I don't, yeah. Uh, anyway, oh fuck, there it came.
Don't judge it. Don't judge it. If anything, throw it in there just for the sake of saying, fuck you, I can say it if I want to. Anyway.
Anyway, it's there's I Levi, I can't express how similar it's felt yesterday and today. Like today very much felt more like, and it's felt very much more like being involved in things and like a full spectrum that I'm not as concerned about. And like I'm like I'm interacting with myself as opposed to like being something that's interacting with something else. And it's just like being involved in it, but there's been lots of ups and downs in that, like feelings gone through and it's like there's something kind of to Jay's point with like the flagpole remaining, but it's like looking out of the flagpole, like being aware that it's like a flagpole, but you're looking out into things instead of being so concerned about what the flagpole is doing. It's like the flagpole is just doing and it's experiencing stuff and there's actual involvement in what's going on, and there isn't so much of a constant idea of what the best thing to express even is. Like there isn't a right expression, there isn't a right action to take. It's just, and like how much am I holding back? How much am I trying to cover up? Like, well, it's here. Like being myself right here. Always the case. Literally always the case right now. And there's a whole spectrum. And it's not even like, you say spectrum, I say spectrum, but it's like there's not even ends to it. It's not like some measurement ruler type thing. It's like there's no spectrum. It's like you're what you are right now. Like where are the assumptions coming from that this that's happening right now, what you're expressing right now, this thing that you're sharing right now, what's telling you there's something wrong with that? Like there's no direction here. There's no right way. And the more you jump into, the more variation you continue to have, you know, out here, the more informed you get. Like it doesn't mean that all the fear and concern and, you know, suffering won't come up, but it's informing you and it's showing you things and showing you, not the least of which being your strength. Your strength. It's like, you know, the person in the comments who's been going back and forth for so long, you know, the suffering, the avoidance of suffering, it's like, what strength do you build in that? It's like the tree in the dome, no wind whatsoever. Is like, is that really what you want? Because you're still living. You're still in reality. You're not actually in that dome. You're still out there. A couple gusts of winds here and there, and all of a sudden you're on your side, but you're at peace. You're at peace. You're peacefully a tree lying on its side, not doing shit. Is that really what you want? Because you can't build those roots without going through stuff, without change, without shifts, without jumping in to new experiences, getting outside the comfort zone. That bubble's the comfort zone. Like, so what do you want to be? You want to be a little bitch tree lying on the ground? You want to be a tree that actually has some roots that can handle some things and actually start growing.
That said, this has been a fun episode. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Had no idea where this was going to go, but that's the point, isn't it? We don't know where it's going to go. Just get involved, you know, be informed by it. Get what you can out of it, and you're going to get what you can out of it if you just pay attention without needing anything specifically. So thank you so much for joining us. We're going to be on Patreon after this for a Tier 2 call. It's our Tuesday night Tier 2 call, so it starts at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Join us if you can, and if not, join us tomorrow. Tomorrow's Wednesday. Our free group is at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. You can register at dualisticulunity.com. We'll see you soon.